Welcome back, welcome back. So I'm going to start off with one of the other songs that the singers, the fabulous singers, closed out the conference with. But I forgot to tape this one. So if anybody has a videotape of when we were singing this, you can send it, inbox us, because I kind of got down and started dancing with my friend Robin. So this song is called Etnia by Grupo Nietzsche, and what it's saying is there's a black version, there's a white version, there's all kinds of the same last names and whatever, but we're still the same people. Right. Just someone got a little bit more coffee in them than the other. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's called Etnia. Al mercado negro, al mercado blanco. So the second day of the conference was even more powerful than the first. And who knew? Who knew that could happen? But it did. We started off with our fabulous, fabulous keynote speaker. First, we started off with a libation and a dedication. The conference was dedicated to my mentor, Loretta Williams, who basically advised me on many areas of my life, but definitely around the organization. And she was actually with us the first two meetings when we started planning the conference and passed away that week after. And it was like she was there. It was like she made this happen. And she brought that light, that joy, that righteousness, that wisdom, that knowledge into that space. Wow. So we did a little altar. Gigi did nice flowers, and we put her with some water and my mom's picture and Gwendolyn, Gigi's mom's picture. Mm-hmm. And I think those three women were definitely with us throughout the weekend at the conference. And the libation is more of honoring of those whose shoulders we stand on and bringing them into the space. And, someone said, no matter how many people are in this space was full because they were clearly with us, being a part of this experience. Wow. So then we went into our keynote speaker, who was Quito Swan, Dr. Quito Swan, who's a professor at Howard University. And he did this wonderful, wonderful presentation that was just extremely moving. And some of the things that he talked about was this is the potential of Black power. And he spoke about how Black women are always at the forefront. He did a two-part. He did Black power in the Pacific, which he spoke of, and then he did Black power in the Caribbean and in the West Indies. And it was a wonderful, wonderful presentation. He talked about sometimes things are right in front of us, but we do not see things, and how do we make the deeper connection? And he really made that connection. I think it's almost impossible to go through what he presented because it was so heavy and so important. He talked about the connection to the Caribbean, to the South Pacific, how indigenous these people were, how resilient they were. He spent time there, how he just loved being a part of it, and what he saw there while he was there. Because when you talk about indigenous in Australia and South Pacific, um, you see just you don't think of African people of African descent, and he brought us into this whole thing. But then what was interesting is how he made the connection to Caribbeans that were part of that movement there, and how they were part of the Caribbean movement, and how women were part of all these movements, and how the connection. And what he said was that it was time, he was highlighting the moments that intersect the global world.
Okay.
Those were his words. And then one of the questions that I asked is how do we then have folks see that we are connected? And this were his words. He said, it is really important to be clear in what we do and what we're trying to do. He's a fan of Walter Rodney, and he said, we need to study history while we fight. We will make mistakes. We need to pay attention to local, but think global.
Right.
We have to find where we fit. We need to keep these networks vibrant. And this network, his presentation, had folks bouncing off their seats. Like my colleague, our MC, our host for the conference was Naheem Garcia. And Naheem was like, how do we get every school child to hear this presentation? Professor Jennings, Professor Kamara, everyone was like in awe with the amount of information that Quito brought to the conference. And it was just powerful. He's so passionate about what he does. He's so passionate about making the Black Afro-descendant connection that you felt it, you heard it, and you wanted more. Like he went on and no one was saying this was going too long or can he finish now? Everybody was like more. And one of the things that I loved, and this is an Afro-Latino piece, is that we think that every movement started here. And he showed a picture and he asked, and if you're interested in seeing this picture, we actually have it on the Encuentro Diaspora Afro Facebook page or the Soulful Afro with Yvette page that had, at home and abroad. And it was a picture, and everyone assumed that it was a U.S. picture, and it was actually almost the Black Panther version in the Caribbean look, and people associate that only with the U.S. And he showed that this was Bermuda and Bermuda's role in their own sort of Black Power movement, and that Marcus Garvey was from the Caribbean and did work here, Malcolm X's mother was from the Caribbean, like. We need to make that connection and not only start one place and end one place, but start one place and go and find out where that place connects out. So that was Dr. Swan. Then we had great food, and Daryl was our caterer, but it was, and I'll come back to the name because I just went blank. And great food, healthy food, because we wanted to make sure it was healthy, balanced food. And then we had Dr. Swan and I are in the Trayvon Martin and Us, an American Tragedy book. So we did a short book reading for folks from both our chapters in the book, and that was really well, because it was, we both talked about when we were asked to do this and what it meant, and we knew it was about Trayvon Martin, but by the time the book came out, Michael Brown had already been killed. And I think right after the book came out, it was Tamir Rice. So that was sort of interesting to see that the book was in name of Trayvon Martin, but you could put like 4 or 5 names since Trayvon Martin into the name of the book. And then should I go on or should we take another break?
We got a few more minutes before we go.
Okay, so then I went, we had another fabulous presentation workshop by Dushaw Hackett, who came in from DC from the Spaces Project, and he did this workshop on Beyond Bias. And it was talking about implicit bias. And he talked about the way we talk about race is inadequate and incomplete because how mental shortcuts can lead to bias.
Right.
But I love the way he started because he made you comfortable. You had to share your nickname as a child, and then you had to share a song that takes you to a good place. What do you have a nickname in your family?
Fizo boy.
What was it?
Fizo.
Frizo boy?
Yeah, Fizo.
What does it mean?
Just know me. This is my middle name. They called me my middle name. That was it.
And mine, and this is revealing, so no laughing at Soulful Afro.
We shall laugh.
Mine was Dropsy. One of my nicknames is Dropsy because my father, I fall asleep everywhere. Don't use me as your, backup driver. Yeah, can't do it. 30 minutes into the drive, I'm ready to sleep.
Wow.
I could just sleep in a car, in a plane. I'm not, your good co-pilot at all. What's your go-to song?
Oh, I so many.
I know. I had anything by Bob Marley, but then like when you just need that pump up, and I'm come from the hip hop generation, right, so right. But that Tupac, I remember Marvin Gaye used to sing to me. He had me feeling like black was the thing to be. That song, that line alone can take me anywhere, can take me out of anything. And so it was interesting to start that way and then go into talking about how people have conscious and unconscious biases, and how folks assume things about people with no understanding. And he showed, one of the things that he showed was a picture of two black men, one darker, one a little lighter. And there was a study done at Harvard that basically said that automatically people see the person that's darker with what they see as threatening images already as a criminal. Which is interesting because my pushback was, now you have even lighter skinned black men having incidents, because we're James Blake, the tennis player, not a dark skinned man, standing well dressed, not a hood, not whatever, in front of a very expensive hotel, and gets knocked the heck out by the police.
It don't matter.
So it's like, does it matter anymore? You're just black, and that's the beginning and ending.
Obama's mother's white.
Exactly.
And those who are racist against him, their mother is white. A white woman had him.
Exactly.
But
that doesn't matter.
There you go.
He still lives a black experience. Right. Period. So one of the things that he said, an implicit bias is a preference or prejudice against a person or a group of people. And he talked about, how we interact, and that we all have biases. The question is, how do we play it out consciously and unconsciously? Like, I've had folks say, oh, Yvette, you're cool and all, whatever, but they'll look at another person and be like, those immigrants. I'm like, hello, what happened?
Right.
And I'll be like, I'm one of those. Yeah. Oh, but you're a different kind. And I'm like,
you're a different kind of black person.
You just threw all immigrants under the bus together? Right. That means you're taking me with them, because I am an immigrant, and I do have an immigrant experience. But he talked about understanding that to then be able to navigate our spaces better. And what I found was refreshing or thought-provoking was he didn't use the word racism or racist until you sort of had this process. But for some of us who come from a black power perspective, it's like you can put it in a scientific way, but then there is a logical way that still needs to be applied. And right now, the logical way is black is bad and white is good. To those who are not black, and from an Afro-Latino perspective, as we talk about an Afro-Latino truth, even black Latinos who don't self-identify fall for the black is bad and white is good. And if they have a little bit of a, lighter complexion, they run with, I'm not black. I'm indigenous and I'm European mix. I'm like looking at your nose, like, what about your nose? What about the texture of your hair? If you don't process it, what happens? So we need to have those conversations a lot more. But thank you, Dusha, for that amazing workshop. I think everyone walked out of there like full. Like Naeem was like bouncing off the walls, like, this is some good stuff. This is some good stuff. We got a lot of good stuff out of it. So we're gonna take a break and we'll be right back. I'm gonna talk about a little bit more about the latest headlines and then close out with a little bit more music. So we shall be right back.